Today we are making Solyanka. It's a Russian soup that's meant to use up leftover cold cuts and smoked meats. It's also a great hangover soup, and I'll show you how to make it. So you want to start off with either what I have here, which is half of a smoked chicken. If you can't find a chicken, you can use a turkey leg or possibly a ham hock. I'm not sure because I've never tried it, but I'm assuming that it would work just as well. The soup is basically a soup based on all sorts of smoked meats, usually leftover smoked meats. I'm not going to use leftover smoked meats, but you could if you had pieces of different kind of cold cuts and stuff. But first I'm going to make the broth, and that just entails boiling this half chicken in some water with a whole onion. And I'm going to cook it an hour, 2 hours, just to get a nice concentrated broth. You don't want to boil it too hard, just let it cook gently, and then I'll show you the next step. So once your broth is finished cooking, what I like to do is chill it in the fridge, and I like to remove the solidified fat and throw it away. And I also prefer to throw my potatoes into cold broth. I cut 3 large potatoes into small cubes, but you can cut yours into any size that you like. And I'm going to cook these until they're done. I find that if you add potatoes to hot broth, they never really get soft. They kind of keep a harder exterior. But if you don't want to chill your broth before adding the potatoes, that's perfectly fine. It'll be fine. Your potatoes might have a little bit different texture. They will cook through. I removed the chicken, and if you're using a turkey leg or a ham hock, you want to remove it. And then I'm going to remove the meat from the bones and save that for later. I will be putting it back into the soup. And I'll show you the next step in a minute. I forgot to mention that I did remove the onion that I had in the broth, and I threw it away. And also, while it's cooking, if you get any foam, I like to use a skimmer and just remove all the foam from the top. I use the Polish kielbasa in this recipe. I have the light one here, but you can use any one of their varieties or anything similar to this. I'm going to dice this up, and then I'm going to brown it in a skillet and add it to my soup. This is what the kielbasa looks like on the inside. So if you find a meat that's similar to this, you can use that instead if you don't have the kielbasa near you, or you have something else on hand. So I cut it into tiny little cubes, but you can cut it larger to any size you like. And I'm going to brown this on a pretty high flame, and then I'm going to add it to the soup. And this is the color that you want your kielbasa to get, and I'm going to add it to the soup now. And some of you may be shuddering at seeing the metal spatula, but I just want to let you know that this is not a Teflon skillet. This is called Scan Pan, and it's somewhat like a cast iron skillet, only it's not. It's more non-stick, and it doesn't need any special care. It's safe to use with metal utensils. I've actually scoured it with scouring pads, and I've had mine for 10 years, and I absolutely love it. You see me using it almost in every video that I do, so I highly recommend it. It is pricey, but I love my Scan Pan. And I'm not getting paid to do this. I wish I was. I'm just letting you guys know so you don't think that I'm crazy for using a metal spatula. I just want to add also that it's oven safe to 500 degrees. It comes with a glass lid, and it's amazing on so many levels. It's environmentally friendly. It doesn't have any of the chemicals that are harmful that they use on the Teflon non-stick pans. It's not as non-stick as those Teflon pans as far as like omelets, but it's non-stick in terms of my food not sticking to it. It's amazing. So I've added the kielbasa to the soup, and now I'm going to add the chicken that I pulled off the bones, and I kind of shredded it, cut it up, and picked it with my fingers to like a smaller size, bite size. So I'm going to put that back in the broth. And now here I have my skillet. I washed it out, and I put some oil on the bottom. And now I'm going to add celery, onions, carrots, and pepper, red bell pepper. So I have 1 red bell pepper, 3 celery ribs, 1 very large sweet onion, and 4 carrots, just because they weren't too large. You kind of want an equal amount of all of your veggies. You can add more or less. Don't stress over it. And I'll show you the next step. I'm just going to cook this until the vegetables have softened. So our veggies have softened, and I'm going to add 12 ounces of tomato paste. And most people would probably add less, but I like a lot of tomato paste in my soup. So I'm just going to mix it in, and I'm going to cook this for a little bit. You'll notice that the tomato paste changes its color a little bit. It's less raw tomato, I guess. I don't know what to call it, but I'll mix it in, and I'll just cook it for a few minutes. And then I'm going to add this whole mixture into my soup. Hey guys, so this is a difficult part for me because I realize that some of you will not be able to get Russian hot dogs. I buy these at our Russian deli. If you have a Russian community near you or Russian deli, then I recommend that you get some of these hot dogs. This is what they look like. If you can't, then you can try a German wurst. Like, Russian hot dogs are not as artificial, I don't think, and they don't have as many preservatives. They taste different than your American, supermarket hot dogs. And I kept mine in the freezer, so you'll see a little frost on them. They're just easier to cut that way. And I'm going to cut them into little circles. Some people like to cube theirs, but my family prefers the little circles. And I'm going to cut these up, probably about 10 or 12 of them, and I'm going to add them into the soup, but you can add as much or as little as you want. The point of the soup really is using up smoked meats that you have left over. So I've added my veggies with the tomato paste and the hot dogs, and now the finishing touches. I'm going to add pickles. I used these, but it doesn't have to be this brand. I like the Israeli pickles, but garlic pickles, any pickle you like, I guess. I cut them into small cubes. Some people like them in half circles, some people like circles. Some people like to use a box grater and shred them. Also, some people like to use a little bit of the pickle juice, but I'm not going to. I'm going to add the pickles in here. And again, you can add as much or as little as you want. I used the whole jar, and I'm trying to see, it's 22 ounces. And then I have pitted calamata olives. Again, you don't have to use this brand, but I do like to get pitted ones because I don't want to deal with the pits. If you don't like calamata olives, you can use the black olives that they sell in the can, but they're kind of flavorless. But if that's what you prefer, and if you want less olives, you can add less olives. And here I have capers. Again, you can add as many or as little as you want. I did drain them, and I did rinse them because they're quite salty. I have 3 ounces here. You can use any brand that you like, but you kind of need the capers. And there's just one more step left, I think, and I'll show you that in a minute. Notice that mine looks a little bit thick, so I just added a little bit of water. You want to make sure that if you do add water, not too much because you don't want to water down all of the flavors, but you can add a little bit, and make sure that your soup boils after you do that. And then you taste it for seasoning. You want to be careful because the pickles and the olives and capers and the smoked meats, they all have salt, so you probably won't need much, if any, salt. You can add some pepper. So it's finished cooking, guys, and as I mentioned before, the soup is intended to use up leftover meats, cold cuts and whatnot. So if you have salami or ham, you can certainly add that, and sometimes I do. But these are like the basic ingredients that I always add. And now as a finishing touch, I've turned it off, and I'm going to add some cilantro and dill fresh, chopped up. You could also add parsley if you wanted to. If you don't like cilantro, you can skip it. And I'm going to mix that in and serve it. I hope you enjoy.